starting Be'ezra Hashem siman kuf pei hey, the last siman in Maimer Shalosh Shavuos, and we're talking here about the people who hold themselves to be Talmidei HaBaal Shem Tov, and they hold that what they're doing, melamed zchus hamitziyonim, is a hemshech of the Torah HaBaal Shem Tov.
Is this the one where you wrote in your book that we don't know the ways of the Baal Shem Tov?
Okay.
They got upset?
We're going to get to that now. Uva mesis yesh kama lavin. Now, what he's talking here about is that there are some people who are just stam bali aveira. They do aveiras. Okay, so those people you can be melamed zchus on them in front of Hashem. And you moichich them when you talk to them, you rebuke them, but when you talk to Hashem, you have to say good about them. But then there are some people who are mesis, who are worse than that. And mesis and mediach, the people who are apikorsim, and those kind of people, everybody agrees that you're not supposed to go and be melamed zchus on them. This is siman kuf pei base, he said that already. And then in kuf pei gimel and kuf pei dal, he spoke about the birkas haminim, the bracha that we say, the daven to Hashem, that the minim should have a mapala, they should die. And he speaks about the Rambam, Rabbeinu Yoina, and that all has to do with the inyan of what our attitude should be, even in tefillah, what our attitude should be towards the minim and the mesisim medichim. Now, uva mesis yesh kama lavin. We're continuing the subject here about the proof that we should not be melamed zchus on a mesis. Uva mesis yesh kama lavin. There are many lavin in the Torah that speak about what to do with a mesis. It says, Lo yisachmo v'lo yisachasa olav. I have the whole pasuk here. If you look at it here, because Kedolos Chumash, it says pasuk tes, Parshas Re'eh Yud Gimel tes. Lo yisai v'lo yisishma ilav, v'lo yisach v'yiseincha olav, v'lo yisachmo v'lo yisachasa olav.
All separate lavin?
All separate lavin. That's 5 lavin. Lo yisai v'lo yisishma. Don't listen to him. Don't agree to him. Right? Lo yisach v'yiseincha olav. Don't have mercy on him. V'lo yisachmo. Also a type of mercy, and don't cover up for him. So we're going to speak about
5 lav, and it's funny that it goes for
what those things mean now. So he says, these lavim mean not to say good about him in Bezdin. So we're going to speak about it in a minute, but it means that if he's in Bezdin and he's not convicted yet, you're supposed to convict him. You're supposed to try to say whatever bad you could say about him. If you left already innocent, you bring him back. Double jeopardy. Bring him back into Bezdin, and if he's convicted and he walks out of Bezdin convicted, you don't bring him back to be melamed zchus on him. Anyway, so the lav deloy sachmol alav, the prohibition on being merciful on him, koi shloy lalamid alav zchus. It means not to say arguments in his favor. The lav deloy sechasa alav. The other law, that not to cover up for him, that you shouldn't hold back, you shouldn't be silent from speaking bad about him. The Rambam brings these 2 lavim, in his Sefer Mitzvahs there. The Rambam over there says that what I just said, that if he goes out of Bezdin, you bring him back in. If he goes out of Bezdin guilty, you don't bring him back in to be melamed zchus. And he also says there that you appoint a judge who is a zaken and a sris mishein loy banim, because the halacha usually is you're not supposed to have a judge who is ein loy banim, because he doesn't understand the pain of his sargidol banim, so he doesn't have mercy on people. And on an old judge, because he's too old, he's forgotten already what it's like to have children. You're supposed to have a young judge who understands and has mercy. But with a basis, it's not like that. You try to have davka someone who doesn't have mercy. Behind Gemara Sanhedrin Daf Lamed Gimel. The Gemara Sanhedrin Daf Lamed Gimel.
No. Before that, in Bezdin, a judge is supposed to be young.
A judge in Bezdin is supposed to be a young person
not
who
too
has
young,
children. Not too young, but someone who has children and understands. He hasn't forgotten yet what it's like to have mercy on somebody.
But what's not like it? After that,
but by a mesis, we do the opposite. We try to get the older person who's a zaken or ein loy banim, because such a person will treat him more ruthlessly. Gemara Sanhedrin Daf Lamed Gimel. That's the source of this Rambam. Uvarashi ala Torah Parshas Re'eh. Rashi ala Torah I have here in this page from the Chumash. It says Don't search for merits to defend him. If you know something that's incriminating evidence, don't keep quiet. Okay? That's the Rashi on the Torah. And take a look also in the Sefer HaChinuch and see how he explains those lavim. And here's the Sefer HaChinuch. It's Parshas A here, mitzvahs. Let me find it here. Taf Samach. Shaloi lalamid zchus lamesis. To lav, not to speak, not to defend the mesis. Shenimna hamusas. That the one who was convinced by the mesis to do avodah zarah is shaloi liton. He's also to speak davar shel zchus al mesis, something good about the mesis. Va'afilu yodei lo zchus, even if he knows some defensive arguments. V'lo yilam dehu v'lo yizkarehu alav. Don't say it. V'al zeh nemar v'lo yisachmo. V'chein amru zikronim livracha lo yisalam elav zchus. Okay, and the next one is shaloi libnoyel milam elav chayva, not to hold back from saying bad about him. Shaloi yachrish hamusas. Now it's interesting. The Chinuch says it's both are going on the guy who is the victim of the mesis. Sounds like it's only him. Shaloi yachrish hamusas milam et chayva al mesis. Aval yolam do alav. You should speak bad about him. V'al zeh nemar lo yisachas do alav. Don't cover up for him. All right. Those are the two lavim. There are other lavim too. The first few words of the pasuk, right? Take a look in the Chinuch and see what those things mean. And he says over here, not to save him, and then look in the before that, not to leave the hatred, not to stop hating him. That's what it says. Don't listen to him, and not to love him. Mitzvah Taftin Zayin. Where does he get that one from? He gets it from Loy Soivaloi. So that's the Chinuch. So now back to our subject. So those people who are flattering the Israeli government, that there were no people who convinced others to do aveiros like them in the whole history of the world. Those people who flatter them and speak good about them are transgressing all these lavim. In the times of the tzdukim and the times of Bayis Sheni, those the apikorsim, and then also in the time of the Shabbos Tzvi movement. Anybody who people saw as being sympathetic to them, everybody knew to keep far away from him. So what it's saying is, he's saying that the Gemara says the Kohen Gadol used to cry when they were chosheh him of being a tzduki, and so even to be suspected of such a thing is like the furthest thing from what a Yid wanted to be in those times. In the Shabbos Tzvi movement, there were all kinds of machlokes that went on then about who was a Shabbos Tzvinik. Yaakov Emden accused certain people of being sympathetic to them, and it was right, and there was a huge controversy. Obviously, no one wanted to be accused of such a thing. That was like the worst thing in the world to be accused of. So he's trying to show the contrast to today. That then, when these heretic movements were around, then nobody wanted to be part of them. And today it's not like that. He says, the Kitos Hatziyonim today, the Zionist groups, with all their parties, grew him harba yoiser mikol Kitos Shahayi b'dor shalafayim. They're even worse than these old heretic movements from the past. Thousands and tens of thousands of steps lower than them. And yet we see everyone runs after them, and they encourage them, and they give them all kinds of encouragement.
But I don't think it's showing them.
There was never such a descent in the history of Klal Yisrael. I already brought down Shadorenu Hador Shal Ik for the Mashiach, that our generation, this generation before Mashiach, is Hu Hador Shal Shichas HaTorah Sha'anu Chazal. This is the time that Chazal referred to when they said Asida Torah Shetishach Yisrael, which he explained to me, not real forgetting, but it means that there won't be a clear psak halacha, because we won't be able to use the regular rules to paskin, because we won't know who's paskining l'shem shemayim and who's not. The derech habal shem tov hakadosh, the Torah that the Baal Shem Tov, the path that he established, is nishtakach legamri. It's completely forgotten me'ador, from this generation. V'chol mi sheroitz litos Hashem, anybody who wants to claim that he is a follower of the Baal Shem Tov, and so lahanasoi, for his own benefit, he says, whatever I'm doing, that's the derech Baal Shem Tov. And this the rebbe already spoke about in Siman Kuf Pei. He started out with this Indian. He said v'achshav apikorsim should be zmaneinu misatfim b'derech Baal Shem Tov ki lo yinoyed lo elam mahu derech Baal Shem Tov ki me'esh shehiter rabbeinu kodesh lichtav Torah sheba'al peh hayod kol drachim b'chsav. But Baal Shem Tov Talmidav lo yikosbu me'umah midarkum b'kodesh. So he says there in Kuf Pei that the Baal Shem Tov didn't write anything, and his Talmidim didn't write anything either. And even though the Talmidim did write Sfarim, you see that there are Hasidic Rebbes who wrote Sfarim, but all the Sfarim are based on what they said by their Tish, and they said it for the people who were there, and it wasn't like a Kaliistic thing for the whole Klal Yisrael to explain what the Derech Baal Shem Tov was. So that's what he means when he says that the Derech Baal Shem Tov was forgotten.
And then the Hasidim are meicha against.
Yeah, so a lot of people got upset when the Rebbe wrote this. So first thing the Rebbe said is, look.
Well, there are some Hasidim
so backwards. That's the only thing they are meicha against.
He
the
said,
whole
yeah,
thing. They couldn't find something.
He said
the last one, they read backwards or something.
They couldn't find anything to say about my sefer except for this. That obviously they went through the whole sefer. They didn't find anything to disagree with until here. So that's pretty good. And then he said also it could be that they, right, like you said, that they opened it from the left. The leiv kasil lismoile, the leiv of a foolish person on the left. So they opened the sefer like an English book. They opened up the Kuf Pei Hey, and they said, oh. So, but
my friends told me it was square. My friend Square is the one who was meicha this.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, okay. So now, but Lamaisa, that in my biography I have here that the Rebbe said that he was not the first one to say that the Derech Baal Shem was forgotten. There were people who said it long before. For example, he said that the Sanloya Rav, Shlomo Zalman Ehrenreich, heard from the Darkei Tshuva.
When he lived?
He lived, the Sanloya Rav was nifter in the war. And so he was, 70, 80 years ago. He heard from the Darkei Tshuva, which was the Munkatcher Rebbe who was nifter before World War I, around that time. So he heard from him in the year 1910. It is now exactly 150 years since the passing of the Holy Baal Shem Tov. It is known that the path of Hasidus only came down to the world for 150 years. In this generation, true Hasidus no longer exists.
Why?
This is why there has been such a downturn among Hasidim. So he held that was a Kabbalah they had, that it was only for 150 years. Similarly, Rebbe Paul Zilber, the Freiman Rav, told the Rebbe that he heard from Rav Huna Halberstam, the Kalashitz Rav, every new movement comes down to the world for either 300 or 150 years.
Even a good movement?
Yeah. So the Kabbalah of the Ramban...
My question is, even a bad movement?
Well, let's hope it's not going to be that long. Anyway, so every new movement comes for 300 years to 100.
Why 100 and 300 specifically?
I don't know. They had such a
Well, at least in Bar Park you see it, how a lot of them are claiming the way of health they're carrying on Shabbos. So maybe it's being fulfilled, because in Bar Park a bunch of guys are claiming it's the way of Baal Shem Tov, to carry on Shabbos.
That's what he's saying, that anything anybody wants to do, they just call that the Derech Baal Shem Tov.
Exactly, they're doing in Bar Park now.
I don't know if anybody actually says that, though.
I'm telling you,
anyway, so
implicitly they'll say it.
All right. Anyway, so from the Kabbalah of the Ramban to the Arizal was about 300 years. From the Arizal to the Baal Shem Tov was about 150 years.
We find Chabad died out. We find out the original Chabad died out. Which the Baal Tanya started. We find died too.
And from the Baal Shem Tov till the time of the Kalashitz Rav was 150 years. But even before that, he said the last Talmidim of the Baal Shem was my great-grandfather Divrei Chaim. This is the Kalashitz Rav. So he said, from then on, we're not waiting for any new movements until the coming of Mashiach.
Why? Why from then on specifically?
I think his yard coming up.
Well, I guess he hoped the Mashiach.
Why specifically?
Is Divrei Chaim his yard coming up?
I don't know.
He's the one by the machine monsters.
Where do we have Shemashar that a movement only lasts for 150, 300 years?
these Hasidim had this Messiah. I don't know
who says it?
And lastly, we have Reb Aaron Roth, the Shomer Emunim Rebbe. He said that the path of Hasidus has been totally forgotten in today's generation. And he said this in 1942. So, long before Vayoel Moshe, many people said this already.
Well, did the Satmar Rebbe claim he has the original path, or he said he's forgotten even by him?
No, he said, I don't have it either.
Oh, you copied the paper about the reading from left to right?
No, I don't have that page here. It's in the book. It's like the page before this.
What's the book is this?
No, that's right.
The Rebbe biography. The biography.
Oh, the Rebbe, yeah.
So that's what he said. He said, I'm honest. I say I don't have it either. You know, he said we make sudas, we sit with people, we talk, but we say Torah, but I don't claim to have the derech of Baal Shem Tov. All right, the chaserei tvuna, those who lack understanding, mischashvim im sipurei maisias. They take into account stories. Sherubam kekulam shkarim uchzavim. They say these stories are the the derech of Baal Shem Tov, and really these stories are totally false, most of them. Umishtanim mipeh peh, and they change from one mouth to the other. V'shinuim min hakatza lakatza, from one extreme to the other. Like the Rebbe once said, anybody who believes all the stories about the Baal Shem Tov and these things is a fool.
Anyone
who says that they couldn't have happened is an apikorsim. It's a different one.
So they're not sure quiver with a flying horse.
Anyway, v'im elu ashkarim nichtavu acher kach b'sefer, and if these stories are written down, and he's not saying davka the Baal Shem Tov, but any kind of stories, if they're written down in the sefer, soyim shehim sefer Torah. They say that sefer is a real sefer Torah. Kvar kasav Rambam zal b'igeres Teiman al eiz inyan shechalak alav zel l'shoyna. The Rambam says about something that he disagrees with. He says sheroi l'chol adas, that you should know shadvarim ho'elu v'chayotze bohem shav v'chazav. These things are false. Don't say that because it's written in a book it must be true. That someone who wants to lie, just like he lies with his tongue, he lies with his pen too. There's nothing stopping him. So it doesn't make a difference if something's in a sefer. If it's a lie, it's a lie. That we really have nothing to rely on except Hashem. When Mashiach comes, Eliyahu comes, Yachziru es kol Yisrael b'tshuva, v'yo'ir einenu b'imkei haTorah HaKadoshah. They'll teach us the Torah, and gam yisgal alanu Torah Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh. Then we'll know what the real Torah Baal Shem Tov was. V'tachzor nevuah Yisrael, and we'll have nevuah then. U'mala haaretz de'es Hashem. Hashem is Baruch Yirachim v'Yizakenu li'Yiraysim b'Meheira. Hashem should be Zoycha that we should make us give us the zchut to see Mashiach in our times.
Essentially, he uses the word Bekum Musa.
Bekum Musa, what is pen?
Yeah, what about 8?
8 is a different kind of pen. 8 barzel, it's a lashon in Tanakh. Kulmus is a lashon of Chazal, I think.
Yeah.
Kulmus means like a feather.
Feather, right? Yeah, that's right.
Hinei herachti k'tzas b'inyanim shoyim manogim.
Kalam.
Yeah?
Kalam.
Okay. I've gone on at length to go off on tangents about this different things that are relevant to the halacha of tzionis and participating in the government. There's much more to say that I can't write down here. And I'm also tired of writing. The truth is its own witness. To those who seek the truth. It's a clear halacha without any shadow of a doubt. That it's terrifying and serious. All the isurim that I brought down here, that are on a person who participates in the Israeli government. Every single one of these isurim, hu biyaharg bi'al yavor. Well, some of them. I don't. He says kol echad v'echad. I think earlier he said only some of them have. We have to check that out. All those who vote in the elections and are the representatives, boy koichem, they go into the Knesset, lishtatif al yadam b'ois haknesses hakmea. They are agreeing in this avodah zarah. They're kind of being part of the avodah zarah. Gam nasim was that shutfim loisa akinus shel Rishayim. They become partners with that group of Rishayim. Kimi koicham ushmam shel aboichrim, and the people who vote are also partners. Why? Because of their power, their authorization. Yoshvim sham achavri haknesses. Those people sit in the Knesset with their vote. And just to review all the reasons, he's not going to review them, but I'll just say the kitzur what all the reasons are now. I have a list of them here. In Siman Pei Ches, just to go back, this basically the second half of the Sefer, from Siman Pei Ches and onwards, is all about the Isser to participate in Medina. Up to Pei Ches, he's talking about the Shvuah itself, right? From then on, it's all about the Isser of Shtatus. So in Siman Pei Ches, he spoke about the Isser of the Shalosh Shvuos and the Kfir that's involved. Then after that, he spoke also about that you're a partner. If you're there, you're a shutif, like he said here, a shutif in all their laws that they make. Then there was about 10 simanim about Avodah Zarah, that the Medina led to Avodah Zarah, and that's why the world's not ready for a Jewish state yet, because they can't go and destroy Avodah Zarah. Then the fourth thing he said was that they have chukos akum, they have laws that are just not based on the Torah, and you're not allowed to have that. Then there's the shvuah of ne'emanos to the Medina that every member of Knesset has to take. And then there's the issue of entering the building. You're not allowed to enter a building of Kfir. They had about 2 simanim on that. People will say that they made peace with them. And they'll say, if they see from people in the Knesset, they'll say it must be that we agreed to the whole thing. And then there's an Indian Megaglin Zchus al Yidei Zakai, Choyv al Yidei Chayev. Nothing good should come through Rishayim, and he had brought a tshuva over Yaakov to support us that we don't take any good minig from Shabbos Tzvi. And then there was a siman on that if people are in the Knesset, they're not going to condemn the Medina, they'll condemn the people who are protesting against it. And then he had a siman kuftes vav about taking money from the minim. That when you take money from them, then you're drawn after it. And then kuftes zayin spoke about the protesting works better than going into the democratic process, because when you're in the democratic process, once you accept the majority, you have to give into it. And when you're outside, then you can still protest, even after the Gzeir was passed. And in Kuf Ches, he has a siman about Vayoel Lishma. Reuven said that the reason to participate is because of Vayoel Lishma, so he went against that and he said no, that the Vayoel Lishma doesn't apply to us because you need to have a Navi to tell you if it's going to work out, and we don't have a Navi today.
And in your book you mentioned Shneur Cutler said the same thing.
He said our derech is a Vayoel Lishma, right? That's really what the only thing that the people who call the participation keep saying. It's a Vayoel Lishma. Kuf Yud Tes, he said it's a Kal V'chomer. If you can't make a Medina even to help Yidden do tshuva, as we see that the main reason why we're waiting for Mashiach is to be free from Shibud Malchus, and then people will do tshuva. So for sure, if you can't make a Medina, you can't join one that exists already, even though you only have a slight hope of succeeding in making people do tshuva. In Siman Kuf Chaf, he talked about Hischabris the Rishayim. Kuf Chaf Daled, he talked about the Meiser with Eliyahu Navi and the 2 parim, that he tried to make the par go to Avodah Zarah, and the par said no, I'm not going to Avodah Zarah, even to make a Kiddush Hashem. And the birds didn't want to bring food. They didn't want to go to Achot's palace to get food for Eliyahu Navi. And finally, in Siman Kuf Nun Daled, he spoke about Shevna. More about Shevna. Chizkiah Shevna was a Kesher Shel Rishayim, made him in a minion. And the Marshal explained that because when you join up with the Rishayim, you become a Kesher Shel Rishayim. So Shevna joined up with Sancheiriv, and that's why he was called Kesher Shel Rishayim. So those are basically his reasons. I counted 16 reasons. Maybe people could count them differently, but in any case, V'nasa hakol b'shutfis el avi avos hatuma shall avos hanazikim lemineim. Anybody who joins it becomes a shutfis with the source of all tuma. Hashem Yisborach Yirachim v'yatzileim v'yagolos Samar v'animra. Hashem should save us from Golos v'yoyer einenu b'Torah HaKadoshah b'Torah HaKadoshah v'yakarveinu l'avodas Yisborach Shmoi b'emes u'b'samim. We should be makarvas to the avodah, and the sefer should have the hashpah. He's davening here that the sefer should have the hashpah on Klal Yisrael, because this is really a sefer for all of Klal Yisrael, not just a sefer for his followers, Talmidim, Chassidim. It's for everybody. No matter what kind of yid you are, you have what to learn from this sefer. Uvazeh ro'isi lahashlim esamayim marishon. With this, I'm finishing off Maimer Shal Shvuos here, the first Maimer here. Asher chashavti lichtoi be'ezrus ha'achron be'arishon. I wanted to write with the help of Hashem, who's the last and the first. L'vayar dinei ha'shal shvuos, and ne'amar mipi matzmiyach yeshuos. The Shal Shvuos, which are said by the Hashem, who brings the Yeshua. And the Adrabah, this is part of our hope for Mashiach, that we shouldn't do this on our own. Ub'schus kiyumam, in the schus of keeping the Shal Shvuos, nizkil l'chol ha'avtachos ha'nibois. We should be zocheh to all the promises that are promised by the Nevi'im. Asher ach me'ito yisbarach shmoi shoyfos yibois. Everything only comes from Hashem. Mishmei shamayim gevoyim l'toiva ois. Things come from Shemaim, and they're good ois for us. Hashem yisbarach yizakeni v'haschil l'sayim maimer hasheni. You gotta say it Chassidish, otherwise it doesn't rhyme, right? The bir din mitzvahs yishuv arteni. Das kol rishonim migdoili achronim me'oreinu raboseini v'techazenu aineni v'shuvoi l'rachmim l'tzion yer kacheni chabseinu v'simchos l'oveinu b'meir b'yameinu amei. They should show us the return to Eretz Yisrael and to Tzion, and in the next Maimer, in Bittul Medina, in the next Maimer Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, he's going to speak about the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael in much more detail. Yirtzeh Hashem.